introduce yourself with your full name, where you live, and then what you bring to the party. So what's your expertise? And if we can do that within 30 seconds, that would be ideal. And I'll start with Teresa.
Hello, Teresa Skinner. I live in Spokane, Washington, and I run an adaptive sports program called Parasport Spokane.
And Trisha?
Trish Shirachko from Mountainside, New Jersey. I run an adaptive sports program, Children's Lightning Wheels. I also do one for New York Road Runners, and I'm a meet director. I'm a classifier and a track and field official.
Nice. And Shar?
Hi, sorry, my light is so bad here. Shar Sorensen, I am from Westminster, Colorado, right between Boulder and Denver. I'm a swim official. I'll be the meet referee. I am a U.S. para official and trainer for officials, and I am World Para official, and I've done everything up to the Olympics, but not the Olympics. That's the only thing I haven't done yet.
Well, maybe you will.
Maybe not going to Tokyo though, but wow, that light is so dark. Sorry. Anyway, we'll see what happens next.
Thank you. Glenn?
Hi, I'm Glenn O'Sullivan. I live in Zion, Illinois, and I do everything swim. I'm a swim coach. I started with GLASA, Great Lakes Adaptive Sports. I have been a national Paralympic coach and also a national technical swim classifier.
Nice. And Paul?
Paul Johnson from Fort Worth, Texas, currently in St. Louis, so probably be dual citizenship here for a while and parents healthy. So meet director, track and field official, been involved for 30 years. And the sanctioning chair.
Yes.
I can see that look from Susan.
And Stephen?
Stephen, I'm from Pompton Plains, New Jersey. I'm a former athlete with Trish's program, Children's Lightning Wheels. I'm a current senior at Loyola University, Maryland, and I compete in swimming, emerging elite national level.
Nice. Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer Lucharowicz. I am currently in Long Beach, which is just outside of LA, so in LA County. I am a classifier and kind of have been the point person between USA Table Tennis and what's now going to be Move United. Woo woo.
Sorry about that. I had to close the door. Randy?
I'm Randy Smith. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I do everything archery. Been the Paralympic coach, run meets, done all sorts of stuff.
Nice. And Jim?
Jim Strunk. I'm in Pennington, New Jersey. Parent of a para-athlete in Trish's program. Former board member on adaptive sports, or still current one until the end of the year, and advocate for all para sports and interested in helping out.
And Pam?
Hi, I'm Pam Carey. I'm from Louisiana, and I run a sports program called Louisiana Gumbo. Stands for Games Uniting Mind and Body. And I am a classifier and a long-time track and field official, and I am representative for para powerlifting. And I'm an event director also.
Nice. Cindy?
Hi, I'm Cindy Hausner. I run Great Lakes Adaptive Sports Association with help with many others, and also the meet director for Great Lakes Games, as well as coaching.
And Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Grant. I'm with Move United. Been working on the Veterans Air Gun program, and also tied in with Arizona Disabled Sports and the Desert Challenge Games.
Nice. Deanne?
I'm Deanne Fay, and I am from Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm also involved with Arizona Disabled Sports and the Desert Challenge Games. Had coached track and field a long time ago, but more recently, mainly in the classification realm, both national and international for track and field.
And Phil?
I'm Phil Galley. I live in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, sometimes New Jersey, because I don't know where I lived before. And I do track and field, and I'm also an official for track and field and swimming.
Nice. And Steve?
Steve Kojal. I live in Savoy, Illinois currently. Was an athlete on Trisha's team a couple years ago. Just finished up my master's at U of I here, and I'm transitioning into the real world. So I have a lot of track and field experience and other experience.
Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Bach. I've had the pleasure of working with Randy in archery. We run a veterans program for disabled veterans, and we work with disabled kids on a weekly basis for archery.
Nice. And Deb?
Hi, all. Deb Jenks, Madison, Wisconsin, COVID hotspot of the week. I work as a full-time licensed athletic trainer. Got into adaptive sports 5 years ago or so. I was co-founder of Dairyland Sports, and also worked with Adapt Sports USA with medical coverage and coordinating for different events. And I will hopefully be going with Team USA to Tokyo next year.
Nice. And Denise?
I'm Denise Hutchins. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been in disability sport for almost 40 years as a meet director, an official, national and international classifier. Have worked as an official in track and field and powerlifting, and a classifier in both. Now just do track and field pretty much. That's about it. Co-founder of the UCO Endeavor Games.
Well, thank you. Just want to welcome everybody and just tell you how much we appreciate your support. This is a kickoff meeting for a series of meetings that we will be holding in November. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see your faces in person this year, so this will have to do, the new normal. But just a couple housekeeping things. If you could just go ahead and mute your mic when you're not speaking, that will help on a lot of the background noise. And then if you do, and this is going to be difficult if you're on the phone, so we'll just have to figure it out. But if you look down on the bottom of your screen, there is a button that says reactions. And if you would like to speak, or if you have a question during any of this, if you could just hit your thumbs up button so that we know that that you want to interject something there, that will just help keep us organized, and we won't be talking over the top of each other, hopefully. And I'm going to turn it over to Sue, I believe.
Yes, yes. Shelley, will you really quick introduce yourself, though, for those that don't know you?
I just assume everybody knows me. I'm Shelley Fazzini. I was the former office manager for Adaptive Sports USA. And now I am a manager with Move United. I'll still be doing a lot of the administrative stuff, but we'll really just be focusing on our competitive events and programming.
And what about you, Jesse? If you can go off mute.
Sure. I'm Jessie Cloy, and I was, or currently am, the junior committee chair with Adaptive Sports USA. And as we transition to Move United, I'll go on staff as a competition manager of operations.
Awesome. And Jesse, as you all know, has put in about 50 hours a week volunteering for the last 15 years. So we're really excited that there was the opportunity to create a staff position for her. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Yep. And I think everybody knows me, but my name is Suzanne Rossi. I'm in outside of Denver, Colorado. And from my emails, you probably know, but I'm wearing 2 hats till the end of the year. One is closing up Adaptive Sports USA as executive director, and just making sure all of that goes through alongside Jim and the rest of the board. And then the other is as of October 1st, which I think I sent you all, my email changed over and all that stuff changed over to Move United. So we'll be heading up the newly created competition department for Move United, which is going to be great. We're really excited. So this is amazing, especially since we sent this out pretty short notice. This is amazing that out of 23 invites, all but 3 people are on this call. So I'm super excited about that. And I thank you guys. I know this is a busy, busy time and you're probably Zoom burnt out and all that stuff. So thank you. We appreciate you guys being here. I'm just going to go over several things about where we are to get everybody on the same page, because you guys are our advocates out there and I'm sure you get questions. So I want to make sure to give you some updates. Jesse, if you don't mind pulling up a few things. And I also want to just give a shout out to some of the newbies that are in that little, that are in the house here today, Shar and Karen. They're involved with our Colorado-based local organizing committee for junior nationals. And I could tell right away that they just were a wealth of knowledge and pretty passionate about the sport. So they're jumping in. And then Stephen and Steve are representing the young people of the world. And as I know I've talked to a lot of you about in the past, we need to have plans for the future, and we need to have succession planning in place where all of us that have been involved in this for decades, or some of us that are older, really bring some young people into the mix and mentor some of the young. So I'm hoping Stephen and Steve can be that light for all of us and bring in the whole next generation to keep all of this going. So glad you guys are here as well. We are going to do a little presentation here, but again, this is about dialogue and about your guys' input and stuff. So stop us at any time. But we're going to go through a few things about what's going on with this merge, what the competition department's all about, and you guys as the competition committee and what that means. As Shelley mentioned earlier, we are going to do a set of meetings in November to replace what we used to do the last several years as the delegate assembly or as our national conference. Move United will host a big national conference in the spring, but a lot of event directors are super busy in the spring, and we acknowledge that. So we'll do a set of meetings in November to just get us all on the same page as we go into the 2021 season, especially around what in the world we're supposed to be doing with COVID and getting back into things. And then Jesse's going to lead us through a couple of discussions about sport and classifications, and then we'll wrap up and talk about how we want to meet on a regular basis as a group and any action items. So Jesse, let's get right into it. You guys, I think at this point know all of this, but just in case, and especially for those that are new, we announced a merge between Disabled Sports USA and Adaptive Sports USA back in May, and we've been working on that, Jim and the board and I, and Shelley and Jesse, for about 8 months now. This all started with a conversation at our conference last year about all the services that are duplicative of each other and how we can really maximize our resources and our reach if we join forces. So I think it's come up in the past and it just wasn't the right time. And it was pretty apparent to us that this is the right time. And it's been a smooth process overall. So this is kind of a boilerplate that's up on the screen for Move United. For those of you that also that don't know, the Paralympic Sport Club program closed about 8-9 months ago as well. So this is a collective force now across the country that's really taking all those groups under one umbrella. So Disabled Sports USA chapters, Adaptive Sports USA chapters, US Paralympic Sport Clubs are pretty much now under this one brand. I am excited about the reach. I know that Move United will have much more benefit-driven opportunities for members than we could as Adaptive Sports USA, just because we didn't have the bandwidth. So it's a pretty exciting time. You want to go ahead forward, Jesse? So I know a couple of you guys wrote me back and were like, well, sure, I'll join, but what in the world is this meeting about? Or what is the competition committee? So what we want to do is a little bit similar to what we did with Adaptive Sports USA, but really make it more efficient and fine tune it. So with Adaptive Sports USA, we had a junior committee and a sanctioning committee and an international committee, and we had sport leads and this and that. And we just want to simplify everything. And we're not going to have all those different arms and different committees. We're just going to have one competition committee of Move United. And that will be an extension of what Jesse, Shelley, and I are doing in the office. And I think it's a very powerful thing to have because you guys are all over the country talking to different people with different expertise. And so you being a part of what we're doing and us being a part of what you're doing is going to have a lot better reach and more of an extension. So that's the bottom line. It's very simple. We just want to have a collective pool of people that can offer expertise both to the office as well as to general public inquiries, maybe new events that want to develop, maybe a program that's doing archery, but we could help them take it to another level and make them more competitive versus just recreational. So that's what this is all about. And we recognize, I know, Jennifer, I know, we recognize that each of you has a certain level of experience and expertise and passion. And we chose you or reached out to you for kind of the different areas that our member networks might need. So some of you represent officiating or classification or sport expertise. Someone like Jim, who's a parent, has both a parent perspective as well as a business side and business perspective and can just bring some different things to the table. Stephen and Steve, as athletes, we really appreciate your opinions when it comes to how we've set up junior nationals and what we're doing with the different sports. And like Tommy has been involved heavily in international, Paul in sanctioning. So there'll be a place for everybody to chime in and give your expertise and be a resource. So, I know Teresa and I talked about this. By no means do we want to make this overwhelming or super structured. You guys all have 1,000 things going on every day and full-time jobs and kids and whatnot, and you're all volunteers. So we can work together to figure out how to make this fit for everyone. I could see maybe a quarterly conference call with the group, or break off into different work groups once in a while when you see some of the goals that we're going to go through later on. One of you guys may be able to take something and research something and go with it on your own time when you have availability. So it's not going to be constant and ongoing in a big time pressure. The tennis, Jennifer asked about table tennis. One thing to consider, and we're going to survey the athletes, is what the athletes really want. So traditionally, there's been 6 focus sports of Adaptive Sports USA that have moved into the sports that are offered at junior nationals. And table tennis has been one we've talked about the last few years because not that many of the athletes that are actually at junior nationals are playing table tennis with programming on an ongoing basis. So that's one to talk about, as well as paratriathlon. Paratriathlon has been at junior nationals the last few years, and there's a pretty hot interest in that right now. So something we could talk about throughout this conversation, as well as moving forward, what really those high level sports that are being offered at junior nationals and are really present at the event series around the country. I mentioned the time commitments. There is something that I'd like everyone to think about if they can commit to. I think most of you already do this, but we would like everyone to be Safe Sports certified and have a background check. I know those of you that are officials, that's a requirement, and probably classifiers too, that's already a requirement that you have. But we would love everyone to do that if you feel like after tonight you could commit to this committee. And if it is like a financial burden or something you need help with, if you could reach out to Shelly and we'll make sure that can happen. And then those of you that are representing sports, Randy, Glenn, Phil, everybody else, I'm pretty sure you guys are already certified with 1,000 different credentials, but that's something we'd love to make sure is current as well. Does anyone have any questions on this? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Jesse. So these are the main areas of focus for now. I know that a couple years down the road, who knows, this could blossom into something pretty big. I know already we've been questioned about, well, what about winter sports? Because the Move United network covers 50, 60 sports out there. So right now we're keeping with our focus of coming into this merge, we are focused on summer sports, and our chapter network in our junior nationals does events in multi-sport summer sports. So we want to make sure that we in the next 2 years can do some enhancements to that and all of those things before we start adding. But I could see down the line some other things being added, which is only a good thing. It's just, are we ready for it? So when we are ready for it, I think it'll be wonderful. Moving forward, we'll start to rebrand immediately. So instead of Adaptive Sports USA sanctioned events, it's going to be the Move United competition series. Sanctioning will be one part of that, but there might be somewhere down the road that some events are part of the series and we promote that aren't necessarily sanctioned. And we have high level promotion of the ones that are, knowing that we vetted them. Junior Nationals, this crew has always been an active part in that, but Junior Nationals will continue to be an annual event in July. Because we missed 2020 in Colorado and we decided to go to a 2-year bid cycle, we will do Junior Nationals in 2021 and 2022 in Colorado. Unfortunately, with COVID, the venues are pretty much frozen right now, so I can't tell you the exact date and the exact location. It'll be either Colorado Springs or Metro Denver. But your guys' help in that is huge. I know some of you are on site actually helping facilitate. Other people are helping plan. But there'll be a time where Jesse might tap into all you guys and just, whether it be for input or expertise or legwork or whatnot, that's a pretty big event. And you'll notice here that we want to start to grow that by 10% annually. The international events, we continue to be the member for the United States of the International Wheelchair and Amputee Sport Federation. Jesse, well, I can just speak for myself and let you know, I still get confused on the international scene as far as how everything aligns with each other and complements each other and the timeline of what's going on. So I know I personally need to educate myself about that and continue to figure out Iowa's, but this year it was canceled. Poor Deb was part of that medical team, and it was postponed twice and then canceled for December. So the next one we're looking at for sure is in 2022 in Russia. And I won't read all these, and I don't want you to get overwhelmed on these, but this is just some things that that, you know, could be involved with how we would tap into your guys' expertise and some things we would look to you guys for. Jesse will talk about sport later, but you know, you've already been doing this. Shar and Karen, you guys can supplement what Randy and Glenn are doing as far as looking at the rules, making sure that they're aligned with the rules of the national governing body, so that it's a fluid progression through the athlete pipeline for kids and adults, qualifying standards for junior nationals, all of that. And then I know one of the action items I'm going to mention later is I'd love to get on a call with all the sport leads and the national governing bodies in the next few weeks and just make sure, again, we're complementing each other. We're kind of one big family and making sure we know what resources are available through them and them through us. Classification. We asked Deanne to be the lead for us, and she does a lot of work back and forth communicating with US Paralympics, but obviously there's several classifiers on the call, so everyone's input is helpful. Traditionally, we're heavy focused on track and field, but I want to make sure everybody, you know, we're advocating for the other sports as well. So, you know, in my opinion, you know, USA Archery and powerlifting and shooting and track and field, the series of Move United competitions is a great venue for all of them to get their athletes classified. So, you know, the series is a really, really nice little eye candy comes to mind for them. And I think that it really should be used as a place for those opportunities to exist. So, you know, US Paralympics knows it, USA Archery knows it, but the classification pool is limited. So, Deanne's been doing a really good job continuing to advocate for that. And then Deb and Jen are on the call, and they came to mind for the sport medicine aspect of things. We've got our eyes on return to play guidelines, which I'm sure you guys all do too, but we'll make sure we talk through that when we meet with event directors in November. And then Deb did a great job with our international team a couple years ago in Ireland. And Jennifer has done just an amazing job trying to create some policies for junior nationals so that every year we don't start over with a new medical team trying to figure out what kind of medical coverage we need to have on site at the competitions. So putting those standards in place has been very helpful. And then we're going to talk about our goals in a little bit, and you guys will see a little bit how those work or how you would fit into those. We'll obviously have our names and numbers published everywhere. We won't put your names and numbers out, but if somebody calls and wants to be connected to somebody, you know, around a sport or around a program or around, you know, event direction, we may reach out to you to be a friendly voice to help guide them. And then the annual meeting, you know, I think it should be an annual thing in November. Just, it doesn't have to be complicated or, you know, expensive or crazy sexy or anything. It just needs to be a time for us all to touch base. So again, we'll do that via Zoom in November, but traditionally we could, I mean, moving forward after COVID, hopefully we can meet as a group. And then if anyone hears about, I know Jim's really good at this, if anyone hears about sponsor or grant initiatives that they think we should look into for Iowas or junior nationals or the competition series, or I look out for a lot of pass-through opportunities that we could pass through to our chapters. Obviously, you don't need to be the one seeking those or writing those grants, but you could inform us and we'll make sure to have those on our radar. Oh, there's another page, guys. Are you ready for another page? Move United does a great job, much better than we had the bandwidth for, of social media and telling athlete stories. And, you know, if you ever come across something that you think is really noteworthy, it doesn't have to be of just an athlete. You know, Paul Johnson got a great award last year for officiating and being part of the USATF. And something like that, a classifier or a coach, something that we want to make sure we shout out and recognize the people that are in our network. You guys can always pass those along to us in just a simple email, and we'll try to get those things shared. And then just knowledgeable about what's out there. You know, who has loaner equipment, who has some training and education things going on, who has grants for equipment. You know, we'll just keep in contact, which I think naturally happens. It, again, does not have to be complicated. Just using each other as a network to share some of these things so we could get them out to our network of athletes and chapters. I'm going to take a break in a minute and go backward of some things I didn't mention, but there is a training and education group, a program group, and there will now be this competition group within Move United, which is pretty awesome. And so the three of us will be the contacts. Jesse's going to be the liaison between this group, but you can reach out to any of us at any time to move the pendulum forward. And then Jesse, before you go to the next one, there's a couple other things I just wanted to mention in general. Again, the merge will finalize December 31st legally, and these two entities will be together. Some of you guys that have been involved for a long time know, like the Hall of Fame and the Jan Elix Awards and those great recognition we've done to professionals and athletes out there. We're going to pause in 2020 because it's kind of hard to do the recognition with COVID, and we want to reset it and rebrand it with Move United. So what was traditionally the Disabled Sports USA Hall of Fame for winter sports will be presented annually at Ski Spec, and what has traditionally been the Adaptive Sports USA Hall of Fame and Jan Elix Award will be presented to summer sport athletes and professionals at Junior National. So we'll make sure that history and that legacy is brought forward, and I think it'll be even stronger moving forward. And then one other thing just in general is our website. As you see right now, it's kind of just frozen. We're not making any updates. We've got a couple banners that say, you know, we're merging, go to Move United. Between now and February, a whole new website will be developed for Move United as a cumulative organization, and that'll launch in February. So don't be alarmed if you just see a bunch of random frozen things that aren't getting updated. I think that'll be fine with Junior Nationals and everything. I think people are understanding right now that it's just a weird time. So any questions? I will look at the chat here. Any questions so far? Will Pam Carey said, will CP Ezra be considered for Move United to assist with international competition? I've had a very surface relationship with them, and I think Move United has too. So we could look into developing that relationship more for sure.
I don't know.
Jim, you were, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know if things have changed, but I know that Blaze Sports was the U.S. member for CP ISRA. So that would just be a conversation that needs to be had, I think, with them.
Yep.
I know.
Shar, yes, we will send this out, and it's also being recorded. And then Jim, you mentioned tennis. A lot of the individual events within the competition series offer tennis. So, you know, I don't think it's one of our focus sports right now for this committee, but USTA, US Tennis Association, is very much has Junior Nationals and all these events on their radar because they want to do a lot of sport development. So they're actively talking to us about which events they could be at or help as far as wheelchair tennis.
Okay, thanks. No, I know
Go ahead.
I know they'd been hanging out at, or attending the last couple of years at Junior Nationals, and so I wasn't sure if there was still an interest as we moved forward. One other thing, I think, to just highlight a little bit more about what you were saying relative to the transition final closeout of Adaptive Sports USA and the sort of restructuring of Move United's board, one of the last things we're working on, and you probably have more of the details, but I'll get it started with a description, so that we don't lose a lot of the history around the awards, a lot of the history of the sport, a lot of the history that's still archived in Greg's storage box in Arizona. We will be commissioning sort of a formal kind of history documentary, so that it captures the individual history of Adaptive Sports USA and kind of gets carried forward into Move United, so it's not lost, and we can use it as an educational piece going forward.
Absolutely. And some of you guys have gotten those emails, so thank you for anybody that put in some information on the timeline and pictures and documents and all that good stuff. It's all over. It's all over the place. Some people have come out of the woodworks. David Williamson, I believe it is, wrote me a 4-page email with just amazing stuff. Pretty cool. Okay, we will move on. I'll start this off and then head it over to Jesse. Their Move United is pretty impressive with their goals and their vision, and they're pretty aggressive, which I think is good, because I think there's been a lot of talk amongst this industry for a long time, and there's been some great things happen, but I think it's good to start to attack them more aggressively to really see a difference. So you guys have probably seen this already. We put this up when we had a couple Facebook Lives when we first announced the merge. But this is Move United's collective vision for 2028 to work towards in the next 8 years as we embark on hosting LA 2028, the Paralympic and Olympic Games. So you guys can read through these, and again, you'll get this deck via email. But it really revolves around increasing the footprint of the organization by being in more locations closer to athletes, by increasing the number of people reached, whether they be youth, adults, or disabled veterans and members of the armed forces, and a lot around media activation and things like that. So we absolutely, this is Move United. This is Move United, like all of us, all the chapters, all the athletes, us at the office, like everybody, because this is a lot of undertaking. So Jesse's going to go through these, and you'll probably notice some things where you can definitely jump into, or if you notice one that's really of interest to you, you can reach out to Jessie and let her know. So go ahead and start going through them, Jesse, if you've got it up.
Okay. I find this very odd because we can't see everybody and, can't read the room. So hopefully everybody's still smiling and happy. So we are going to go through our competition department specific goals that we've come up with based on the broader Move United goals. And I won't read each slide, and we are going to present this again in November. So what we really wanted to do tonight is talk to you guys about how you may be able to play a role in some of these goals that we have. So here on this first page, going off of goal 1 within Move United, ours is to enhance the current competition series through continual development of the sanctioning process. And just so you know, when we were coming up with our goals, we really focused on 2020 through 2022. We took off a smaller bite to get some things that we could really accomplish. And so looking at this slide, I think one area that everyone on this call can really help with is us number 2, which is to create and compile and disseminate educational pieces and other resources. I think everyone on this call is an expert in one area or multiple. And we know that there is a lack of information out there or at least easily found information out there. And it can be very, very frustrating for coaches or athletes or parents or anybody, right? Anybody in our network. And so it really is a goal of ours is to compile everything that is currently out there and then to produce new material when necessary. Under Vision 2, we are looking to increase efficiencies in the front end and back end data management systems. I know that SAMS is a bit of a pain point for some, but it is it was a great program when it was created, and I think it still continues to serve a purpose. And so we are partnering with Adaptive Track and Field USA to create a SAMS Part 2 named to be the permit. So we're excited about that partnership with ATF USA. We're hoping to have a trial run in 2021 and then have it fully up and running by 2022. So I think our ask here would be even those who maybe are not SAMS lovers to really buy into this process and this development of this new program and help us, you know, and it's okay to provide your pain points so that we can improve the new system and get it going. Under Vision 3, we're looking to develop a competition strategy that will lead to at minimum one competition inclusive of adaptive athletes in every state by 2028. And I think the starting point for us, when Susan and Shelley and I were talking earlier, is really number 2, which is surveying the current landscape of opportunities and then identifying gap areas. So we're not quite sure what it'll look like, but I'm gonna create some kind of spreadsheet or some kind of database, and we would love for you guys to just sort of dump everything you know of in there so that we can start building out, because we're not talking about just our competition series, right? We're talking about any opportunity in the adaptive sports world, what's out there, any programs that are happening, any events that are happening. And then hopefully we'll have a picture of what's going on in areas that need our help a little bit more than others.
Jesse, let me just chime in there if you don't mind. If, we don't necessarily want to create 50 competitions, that are going to be between February and July, because with 22 now, it's hard for the officials, and everybody to rotate around and the athletes to pick and choose. So yeah, like she said, it's not necessarily our competition series of Endeavor Games and Desert Challenge and Tri-State and Dixie and all those. It's more, it could be the Boston Marathon, or it can be, an inclusive road race with New York road runners. But just to kind of know what's out there a little bit more in the competition space. Thanks.
And I apologize, I can't see the chat, so please just interrupt me if you need to with a question. Okay, so under Vision 4, our goal is to grow participation numbers at junior nationals by 10% annually, as Susan mentioned already, bringing hopefully the total participant number to 275 in 2021, because we will have a games in 2021. So I think on this one, I think number 3 is a very easy ask of those on this call, which is to develop stronger partnerships, not only with NGBs, but other key constituents. I think all of you are in one way or another connected to outside organizations. And in order for us to grow, we obviously need to improve those relationships, get the word out there, and make sure that athletes are aware of the opportunity, and certainly bring them into the fold if they are not.
Jesse, one second, there's a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Jennifer, will we consider sanctioning military adaptive sports competitions? I know I am going to invite Dave to our November meetings, who runs the National Veteran Wheelchair Games. And I know obviously there's the Valor Games and the Big Victics Games and all of that. Paul, can you speak to if there's been a reason in the past, or Phil, that we haven't sanctioned? Is it just, I don't see it, why, if it's, like one of Trisha's meet is mainly youth, if one meet was mainly veterans, why it would matter?
I think historically it's been because they use a different classification system. But there are, like, you know, Scott Danberg does the DOD group for special operations, and Callie, who used to be with US Paralympics, is with Air Force. So there's enough people there to potentially do that, and they would be interested, but they just have their own system, is my understanding of the problem in the past.
Yeah, I think, Phil, I think it's been that they don't follow our rules either. So they have different composition system and then they don't follow our rules. We are open and we accept any of the veterans to our meets, and we would certainly broaden the scope to add more meets if they just would, you know, if when they came to our meets, they follow the IPC rules for the sports that we're holding. And for the most part, those who come to our meets in Texas and Cindy's meet in Glassa, and we don't have too many in New Jersey, but those that come follow our rules and we welcome them. And we certainly in the New York, New Jersey area, because we just had Trish and I were just on a call with our tri-state board last week. We openly want more veterans to come out and participate. We just have had a problem because it's on a Saturday and Sunday, and they don't want to, and the veterans organization doesn't want to work on the weekends. So if it was a Tuesday, they'd come, but unfortunately our meets are not then. So the answer is yes, we welcome them, and as long as they come and follow the IPC rules, we're happy.
Well, I don't think it's a case of getting veterans to come to our meets. I think the real question is do we want to sanction their meet? And the problem has always been in the past is they do have their own classification and they follow different rules. They're not standard to what we practice. So that would be a hard sell, at least to me.
Okay. And then Teresa and Shar, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is Deb in Madison. So this last 2020, if we would have had our games, we were going to be kind of hopefully a springboard. Finally got some traction with the veteran VAs around here. We were hoping to be a springboard for the 2020 Golden Age Games that were going to be in Madison, which is still a hope for next year. So that would be an interesting conversation. So just saying.
Yeah, let me just add one more thing, because it's, and Jennifer's and I have talked about this, and Paul, I mean, we have no problem bringing the veterans into our games. Jesse's done it in Georgia when we have veterans who are coming that are not classifiable. That's not a big issue. We would just, you know, create, and now we would create a 70s class that would be for those open athletes and let them compete. Again, the only thing that we have is that they have to just follow the IPC rules.
Okay. And Teresa, from a coach's perspective, and Shar from an official's perspective, what's your take on it?
Well, I can let you know, I've worked with Wounded Warriors since they started in 2010 here in Colorado. And then I moved to Invictus Games when it was in Florida a couple years ago. And I've continued to work with Wounded Warriors with Glenn. They generally, when they are competing at that level, they are classified into like 3 groups. Instead of having all the different group classifications, they'll do lower limb, upper limb, and then visual and things like that. I think that because there are so few competitions that the Warriors can get into, or the military can get into, they might be interested in doing more. Glenn, you might have more of a perspective on this as well. I do know that whenever I work with them, well, all the times that I've worked with them, they follow the IPC rules. I give them how that looks. Anytime the competitions happen, I'm the meet referee for those, and so they've always followed the IPC rules, and there's never been any issue with that. And there wasn't with Invictus or anything like that either. So I think that, I could talk with Tom, who's in charge of that. He may be interested. Of course, the Warrior Games were postponed this year because of the COVID. They're also talking about moving the Warrior Games to a 2-year rotating schedule instead of every year. But I know just working with the different coaches on all the different military branches and having, a variety of conversations with even a lot of the athletes, they would like to see more competitions that they can get involved with. So I think they'd be very interested in being invited, or at least having the information of what's out there, instead of just being having to do the few that are with para, because they can't always work in that area.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Char.
This is Denise. We at Endeavor, we have had quite a few military, but most of that was we had grants to bring them in, and when that grant went away, our numbers significantly declined. So that may be funding to get them here to our meets, may be part of the issue.
Okay.
This is Glenn on that. Yeah, there is, when the funding does go away, the vets do not do the travel. The VA does do some grant work with veterans. Seems to be the same crew that are the ones that are traveling to the different events. A lot of the times the word does not get passed out, especially in the Warrior Games. The word's not passed out to the athletes of where and what organizations. So when I go to the Warrior Games, I'm always trying to get that information out, saying, hey, you need to look at this, look at that, look at this, call me, whatever, just to get that information out. Military likes to hold everything in and not pass that information out.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to pause this here. I think this is a topic to put in a parking lot and have another dialogue about from all those that chimed in and maybe a few others. In my opinion, it seems like maybe if we're not going to sanction it, there's still part of this series, so that big picture people are aware of what's out there and can get active in competition. But maybe we don't have the sanctioning stamp on it if they're using different rules, classification, all of that. But still, we can make it part of this network a little bit stronger. But let's keep going, and then that's a topic that obviously needs to be explored. I think that they would, at least Dave on the National Veteran Wheelchair Games side is very interested in exploring, and I'm sure the Valor Warrior Games, all those as well. And then really quick before you move on, Jesse, Jim had a question, wondering if Vision 3 and 4 require to focus on expanding officials, coaches, and other event organizers. I could tell you with all that we're thinking about, there's a couple buckets of athlete, coach, official, classifier, event director, or kind of local organizing committee. So those are the key, some of the main key people involved in competitions. And so whatever we do, we're looking at all of them. At this point, I think our focus for the next year is the athlete and the event directors, because that's our, our community of chapters. I don't think we fully wrapped our head around how to best assist with the official and the classifiers, because we don't own them. The national governing bodies or US Paralympics really owns that space. And it's very apparent that our help is needed, because they can't do it all, or they can't do it, how we need them to do it. So there's no doubt we need to dive into that to really see what our lane is and what really we can be most impactful for. I can tell you we have a great training education platform on the website and through webinars and through our conference. And we have great on-site venue opportunities for NGBs to host clinics for officials or classifiers, or for classification to happen. So we have those tangible things. We just haven't wrapped our head around yet. Are we doing the coach education? Are we doing the classifier education? Because it's not necessarily we're not the owners of that. So that is something, another thing to put in the discussion box of, if anyone has any thoughts on that, really what our role in is of all of that. But yes, it needs to happen. It's just a matter of how. Did I answer your question, Jim? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to stay on mute, but yes, you did. Thanks.
Okay.
If you have a couple seconds for track and field, we're trying to get our hands around the coaching and obviously officials. So on the official side, we are partnering with U.S. Paralympics, and we have a national committee to broaden the number of officials that are out there. And Jim has given us Zoom time twice, and so we're moving forward with opening the officials 2021 through 2024 certification process on or about 12/1 of this year with the new course and test. So that's going on, and hopefully we'll get, we average, Paul's involved, so we average about first 300 to 400 officials, and we want to get that up to 600 or 800 so that we can meet the criteria of being able to officiate track and field at least within 50 miles of everyone's home. So that's part of that goal, so that we're lined vertically with Move United. And then the other part is, for at least for track and field, there's been tremendous amount of programming and coaching that has gone on this past year because of the COVID environment. And what we've decided to do from Adaptive Track and Field USA board and on the website is we don't necessarily have to produce that information, but what we'd like to do is we're going to call a committee together of coaches. Trisha's involved, and Jesse, and a number of our board members, so that we can collect all of those videos that are out there and group them by topic, so that you can come to one place. And if you want to learn about wheelchair pushing, these are all the videos that are out there to do that, rather than have the person go out and search for that. So we're going to try to pull that together, and we've started that process, and that is one of our 2020, 2021 action items. So if we can, what we found is that a lot of the training is repetitive that has been done, and a lot of money is being spent multiple times on the same subjects. And if we can accomplish grouping these topics together within our sport of track and field, then we'll be able to find the holes, and then hopefully be a resource to those that have programming dollars to do training, to say, well, we really need training in this area because there's a big hole here. And so that we can leverage all the organizations out there that want to do training or are doing training.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Phil. We are going to move on. I just want to mention that these questions that everyone's putting up is exactly why we want this committee to happen, is because we could take some of these discussions and have smaller working groups that are hashing them out, to make them not just discussions, but actually happen. So we will table a couple of those thoughts, and I wrote them down for future conversation, and we go from there. Thanks, Jesse.
Okay. So while everyone was talking and I was reading through this sheet, I was just trying to pick out one or two things from each slide. But number 5, and I apologize, I forgot some of you are on the phone, so I'll read it for you. But it says to develop an ambassador program / notable alumni from junior nationals to mentor and promote it. I think that's something that if you guys, I feel like when you hear ambassador program, automatically names probably start popping into your head of who you've met over the years that you think would be really good for that. So if you guys could just jot that down, and at some point just reach out to Shelley and Susan and I with those names, that would be great. We'd love to get that program up and running. Okay, so still under Vision 4, we're looking at making competition financially accessible to all that want to compete. This is really important, I think. And so we are looking at number 5 is sort of going back to earlier about identifying gaps in programming. Here we're looking to identify sort of gaps or underserved areas within our population. So whether that's disability or gender or ethnicity or socioeconomic status, anything like that. So you guys are on the ground doing programming. You can hopefully give us an idea, or, or a picture of the landscape in your area and help us to figure out who we need to target and where. Create a diverse participation.
And just a side note, Move United just created like a DEI team, which is pretty amazing. So they're going to be working on different things like creating programs in underserved areas, and we'll work with competitions as well. So I know it's a very prevalent thing right now, but I think the steps that are being taken are very thoughtful. And one of the things we'll mention to the event directors is like starting to collect data in a certain way so that we can help get grant opportunities for different areas that are in need.
And I'm going off topic slightly, but I've mentioned this a couple of times when talking with Susan and Shelley, and one of the goals, as you saw, was opportunity to participate in sport within 50 miles of everybody in the United States, and how amazing it would be if we achieved that goal by 2028. But when you think about 50 miles, that sounds great now, right? Because there's some kids who have to drive 4 hours to get to a program, but for someone who may be disadvantaged financially or otherwise, 50 miles is a lifetime away, right? So how do we approach this and really make our programs accessible to all, whether that be through transportation or new programs, things like that. Okay, under Vision 5, which is implement an athlete protection program, our goal is to conduct a risk and liability assessment across the competition division. This is really Shelley's area, but I don't know if there's any specific way that we would ask that you help us with this, other than to please, just as Susan said, be Safe Sport certified, do your background checks in the programs and organizations you're working with and running, ensure safety and for all as well. Susan, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think we'll cover a bunch of this too with the event directors in a couple weeks. But just so you guys know, Shelley's been doing kind of a competition space audit with the risk management guy at Move United, which I think will eventually help streamline things.
So I flashed to this slide when we started talking about the veterans, so I don't know if we need to spend too much time here, but Vision 6, which is double the number of veterans served from under Move United. And so our goal within the competition department is to increase veteran knowledge of and participation in the competition series. We just talked a lot about the barriers or obstacles for including veterans, but I certainly think it's a population that we should tap into and improve programming for. And finally, Vision 8, which is be the preferred source of expert and research-driven counsel. And our goal is to continue to initiate, expand, and strengthen relationships with national and international stakeholders. So we touched on this earlier, but this sort of just breaks down the major groups that we're working with, including IWAS, the USOPC, NGBs, well, it's not listed here, I would say any of our community partners, and then LA 28, looking ahead, to the game. So I think in any way, if you have, relationships in any way to any of these organizations, we would love to lean on you to improve those relationships. Okay, back to you, Susan.
Okay, everybody's still doing all right?
I have my mini morsel chocolate chips that I could pass around if you need a little fix. That's what I'm doing. Okay, so as you've heard us mention a few times, we are going to gather a larger group in November for about 5 meetings. So it would be this competition committee, and then we will invite the 25 event directors in the Move United competition series. We would invite, you know, like the NGBs of the focus sports. So, you know, Mary Hodge for powerlifting and Charisse for Paralympic track and field. We'd invite Kyle, who does classification over at Paralympics. So we would basically extend the meeting invite to some of our sport allies out there that we want to work in collaboration with us. So that would be the target audience, maybe up to like 50 people, so that we could still have the chat box going and have some dialogue, and then really just get a kickstart to the 21 season. So if you want to go ahead and, yep. So these are the dates, and we'll put this out as soon as we talk to everyone today on if this will work, because we definitely want a few of you to lead different sessions here. So tonight is the kickoff for you guys on the competition committee. We would love you to give us a thumbs up if you're on board with this after tonight. Monday, November 2nd, these are all, it says it, but these are all mountain times. Monday, November 2nd for an hour will be updates from the Move United competition department. We would love you guys to attend. It will be a little bit repetitive of what we just shared with Vision and stuff, but Glenn Mary, the ED of Move United, will join us and just stress. They are so excited. You know, they are really, really excited to have this addition. So he'll stress that and greet everybody. So we'd love you to put that on your calendar. Thursday, November 5th, 5 to 7 is the competition series. And we recently put out an event director survey to the 25 events around the country and got good feedback. So we'll highlight some of the opportunities that exist through that network, some of the challenges that exist. Angel City and hopefully UCO will highlight their best practices around the virtual events they did this summer. And then we will spend about a half hour on, if you guys don't mind going on mute. I've got ADD, so I get a little distracted. But we will go into talking about the return to play. I was very, very surprised in the event director survey that almost more, you know, like 70% of them actually had a date picked out for next year, which is very exciting and optimistic, but we know that we need to have a plan B if that can't happen. So we'll talk a little bit about guidelines for return to play, and then have Paul Johnson jump in and just talk a little bit about scheduling, so the series isn't overlapping. You know, it's okay for an East Coast and a West Coast to overlap the same dates, but really making sure none of the events in the same region are overlapping. And so we'd love you to join us then. The Monday, November 9th will be Paul and Jesse and Ryan and Shelly, who work in risk management. We'll talk about, you know, just any updates. Are we still charging individual athlete fees? Did we get away with that? Is there a sanctioning fee? What's the process? And then Ryan will talk about, you know, safe sport, concussion protocol, all those different things of risk management. And then this is the big one that Jesse's going to talk through tonight with you guys. So if you can hold out a little bit longer, this is what we really want your input on. For those of you that are sport expert, those that are representing sports, we want you to lead these sessions. So Jesse will talk through if we think 45 minutes is long enough and what we'd love to see covered in those times, as well as potentially rearrange some of these. But well, I'll ask that question to you now.
Mary Hodge, Pam can join you and would love to join you, but she can't until the late spot. And I know archery, Randy also requested the late spot. So is there anyone that wants to do a little swap in here before we formalize this?
I don't teach on Tuesdays, so if I'm for table tennis, I think it can probably move.
All right. I've heard from Mark that he could do that. I've heard from Glenn and Shar that they can do that. Phil said he could do that. So what about Pam Carey?
You also have Paul Coltrajon on now as well.
Welcome, Paul.
Well, if Mary's wanting to do it powerlifting, you're going to give Mary Hodge powerlifting at 2:30 instead of and move table tennis up there.
Yep, but then we need to duke out Randy. So you would still be leading it, Pam, which Jesse will talk about, but
oh, okay.
But Mary would.
Either time's fine with me. Yeah, it's fine. I can do whatever you want me to.
Randy, what about you?
I have classes until 2 o'clock. So I can do anything after 2 o'clock.
Do you want to ask before we go further on this? Is everybody good with 45 minutes? I mean, it makes for a long day. So if we go longer, we probably would look at making this into 2 days, but we'd be happy to do that if anyone thinks they need it.
I think maybe we need to go through our expectations first, Jesse, and then we can kind of revisit whether or not we think that those can be accomplished in 45 minutes.
So yeah, okay. So maybe we hold off on moving everyone around until then.
Okay. And so not everybody would need to be on these. This is basically the sport leads would lead, you know, any event directors or people that are interested in the sport would jump on for the specific session. But we do have some sports that would want to be in all 5, some events. So we'll come back to this. And then classification, Deanne, if you're still on, I thought you were Mountain Time and you're not, you're Pacific Time. So I don't know if this is a conflict for you from what you gave me.
Time changes in November though, right? Before this would happen?
Correct.
Look at that.
And we don't change, so we become Mountain Time by that time. So that's good.
Okay. Okay, so then what we saw from the event director survey is a ton of people wrote classification to be one of the most challenging, whether it be the cost of it for travel or wanting to have it and not getting it. So the thought was to have Deanne and Kyle and potentially USA Archery, because they're going to be starting to do a little bit more classification, or we could talk through this. Oh, thank you. Jesse, I'll let you talk through that in just a minute. And then the final one, if you go back, the final one is we weren't ready for this yet, but we can decide a date. I'll put this out by next week for January. I know nobody wants to think about January yet, but I think it'll be really important to regroup then, because people just don't know what's going on with COVID yet. And hopefully we'll have more clarity in January. So we can regroup in January with Paul and everybody. And then the marketing team at Move United, there's 3 really great people, and I'd like to challenge them to help create a couple of items for a toolkit for the event directors, whether it be just a simple press release template or whatnot. So we'd like to have a little bit of time to talk through elevating events, whether that be hearing Desert Challenge talk about their toddler run, or hearing Cindy talk about how they elevated the athlete experience in a different way. And then hear our marketing team talk a little bit about some ideas around sponsorship and marketing. So that'll kind of continue our discussion early in the new year. So we'd love you guys on all of these. I know it's a lot. Priority to those that are going to be facilitating. And obviously, if you can't make one of them, we're going to have them recorded. But we'll be putting this out in the next week. Any questions before Jesse goes into the nitty-gritty?
So Susan, can I clarify one thing with all these dates?
Yeah.
Hello? I just wanted to clarify the dates because I'm sitting here with a calendar like I know many of you are. And so we've got Monday, November the 2nd. We got Thursday, November the 5th. We've got November the 9th, Monday the 9th, Tuesday the 10th, Friday the 13th, and 14th. Is that correct? Are those the days that we're looking at?
Yes.
Because they weren't quite in order up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did it really random and all over the place because everyone has such different schedules with work. So, you know, some people might like just everything in one day. Some people that's really hard. So we tried to vary it out a little between morning, afternoon, and evenings. And, you know, obviously people are in different time zones. So Shelley will eventually send this out.
Oh, good. For those of us that are on the phone, that would be helpful.
Yep. But we wanted to make sure a couple of these are good for you guys before we send them out. So that's what Jesse will talk about a little bit, if everybody can sit tight a little bit longer.
Good. Okay, so I have 8 minutes. Okay, so for those who would be doing a sports session, I think you know who you are, and if you don't and you want to help, then please let us know. But this is sort of the main areas that we would be looking to cover in the 45-minute session. So one would just be sort of a general update on anything that's going on in the sport, and then any rule changes that have happened that are relevant for them, anybody, you know, event directors and others to know. Then we are working on a sport cheat sheet for everybody. So it'll be a template that looks the same for each sport. You know, the headers are the same and the information obviously varies depending on your sport. Covers some of these items that are listed here. Thank you to Paul Johnson, as I have leaned on him to edit for me. So I will get that to you no later than Friday of this week, and then would just ask that you look it over, edit it, add to it as needed, and get it back to us no later than October 30th, so that we have that finalized. So that will give you 2 weeks to update. And then cover general resources, you know, things like training and education, funding, anything that would be helpful within your sport that is a good resource out there. And then obviously provide information for the Move United and Competition Committee contacts, so that if they have any questions and need to know who they should reach out to.
Anything missing from there that you guys think should be on it? Paul Coulter-John, you asked if the committees are no more. This is the committee. There's just one big committee for Move United, and one of the hats that people wear on this committee is the sport expertise. So that group would be working on this. So so Pam for powerlifting with you as well.
The only thing I wonder if maybe needs to be added is just like the events. So, you know, table tennis has singles and doubles, you know, track and field has a million different events. So what events we typically include for someone who's new, if that's what the cheat sheet's going to be for, I think that might be helpful.
Yes, thanks, Jen. And I'm not looking at it obviously right now, but I do think at least for some of our sports, I put that in there, but I probably didn't list it for like track and field. That's so big. So that's a great idea. And, you know, and it will point to rule books and things like that. So it's hopefully an easy sheet. And just so you know, this is all going to come out of a larger document. It's like a how to run an event, how to run a multi or single sport adaptive event. And so that document is about 40 pages at the moment. And we're just gonna take out the sports sections for this because we don't need to overwhelm anyone, and have just cheat sheets for each sport. But yeah, I'm welcome. Any ideas you have, please. Anything you think people will need.
So does everyone think that 45 minutes, there's no doubt 45 minutes will be tight. People have questions. Do you guys think it's doable?
Yeah, I think it's doable, but you might just, it might just be a lead into to another session some later time, right? To understand if we need to get more specifics into a specific subject, we could collect all that information, and then we can then schedule something later on those individual subjects, right? But it's good to have an overview and get everybody on the same page.
And Jesse, Tricia asked about including the meat levels and the meats that would be best for classification.
Yes. I wish I were more savvy, Tricia, because if I could figure out how to show you a different page of my screen, I would. And Tricia, if you guys haven't ever sent a document to Tricia, you should, because she catches everything that is missing or needs to be fixed. So she's fantastic. Yes, it has in there sanctioning. And so I've taken, this is too much information, but I've taken what's already on the website about sanctioning. And for me, it's overwhelming because it's a list and it's words. And I've turned it into a table where it's got level 1, level 2, level 3. So it's easy. Like if I want to run a level 1 track and field meet, here's the only things I have to do. And certainly you can go above and beyond that, but I tried to simplify it. So yeah, because anybody who's been there, done that, doesn't probably need this other than to maybe see some things that are updated on rules. But if you're brand new, it can be a very overwhelming experience.
What about including like a contact? That's the contact person there at the bottom, the person for more info. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I love this idea, Jess. It's gonna be great for people.
Cool.
And then if it's okay, I in the chat box, Phil said track and field's okay moving time. So we'll swap powerlifting and archery wanted to be later, and table tennis and track and field said they didn't mind. So we'll swap those. We'll keep swimming and shooting where they are. And we'll send out another draft tomorrow for you guys to give the thumbs up. Is that cool? Okay.
Okay, and then just quickly on the classification panel that Susan mentioned earlier. Yeah, classification is always a hot topic. So I think the trouble with this session will be figuring out exactly what to focus on, because it can quickly and easily get out of control. But we would like to focus definitely on track and field and swimming, and would also very much like to include, archery, powerlifting, shooting, all of our sports that we cover, if there's someone available who is willing to help us out with that. And these are the things we're looking to go over, so why, what is classification and the importance of it, very kind of high level, quick. Classification needs, how do you request classification for your event? What happens if there aren't opportunities in my area? And all the things that you probably guys have been asked or have heard over and over again. So it's sort of a classification 101, as quickly as possible with all the sports, which is an impossible task.
Well, so my question for you guys here is obviously track and field and swimming, but Mark, Grant, if you're still on the phone, or Pam and everybody else, if it's value added to add shooting or powerlifting or archery, because there's such little opportunity because there's only one classifier in the country. Should we include those or not?
You know, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to reach out to Tim and Todd on that topic and get their feedback on it, and get back with you on that, because yeah, that's a tough one, and I know that, you know, our classification. I mean, we basically, when we do a competition, we do classify during their qualifying time, but it's nothing IPC official, and we do it different than when you go to a veterans games, because they have their own classification. So so you got Tim and Todd that are on both sides of that, and I'm going to let them give some input on that.
Okay. And in archery would love to do more of it, but they don't have they only have 1 or 2 classifiers. One is going to be classifying for us at junior nationals, but you know, that is mainly going to be how Deanne and Pam and everyone have done it in the past. So, you know, that's limited. And then I did talk to Mary Hodge yesterday, and they are in the same boat with 1 classifier. So even though it's in all beautiful world, they would be out at all the events, they're not. But it'd be interesting for those NGBs to hear from swimming and track and field the model of what, you know, the most opportunities to eventually have the goal of training more classifiers. Okay, so Pam says no to powerlifting. Okay. And so Deanne, would you and Kyle, you think, be okay being the lead in this?
Yeah, sure, that's fine with me. So you just want us to meet up beforehand and kind of figure out what we're presenting and what questions we're answering in that?
Yeah.
Okay. Will do.
And I will ask USA Archery, but they're going to be very, very small in the discussion.
One thing I just wanted to consider to put on this agenda is I know a lot of event or competition managers want to save money and have people wear multiple hats, and maybe a discussion if we should do that or not. Because I know sometimes people are wearing 3 hats because they're classifying, they're helping with competition. You know, we want to save money, but how do we, you know, make sure this all works? So I don't know the right answer, because I think kind of depends on the person, but maybe it's something we should discuss to come up with some what is enough and what is too much. So we don't know about.
So Jennifer, that's a good point. Would you guys rather change the focus of this and have it more of a discussion planning of classifiers of different sports, and then in January we can present a little bit more to everybody else? What would be helpful?
Well, I just think if this is with if competition managers are, the target is for them to understand about classification needs, I think that's something to consider, because I know like Pam and I have classified more than 1 sport at events, and we felt okay doing that because again, it was a good use of resources, but I don't want to necessarily set that precedent. And where do we draw that line? If someone, I know there are times that Pam's been officiating and classifying at the same event, and we make it work. But I don't necessarily want that to be the standard for everyone. So I think it's just one of those, as we're trying to save money and we have people that wear multiple hats, how do we kind of address that? Because I know one of the biggest concerns is, you know, the cost of having completely separate classifiers fly out, and some people request us that can wear multiple hats, and what we want to do now that we're rebranding in managing that. Okay. And like Trisha, you've worn like every hat sometimes at your competitions. So I don't know the answer, but I think it might be in this, you know, something to think about.
I think we have to be careful on that though, because like in track and field for sure, those classification rules are handled by OPC. And so if we're, if we're, you know, I mean, when they're stating the rules that if you're assigned to be a classifier for that event, you can't be an official unless it's at a time separate from when you're watching the events. And that is part of the requirement when they assign us. I know that that's not what always happens, but I don't want to open up a discussion that's against the rules that we're following to be a national classifier. So I think we have to be careful treading that direction.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you two mind, maybe in the next 24, 48 hours, we'll keep this time in this time frame so that we could put it out, but would you guys mind connecting on what you think the most important use of this hour would be? You know, because the world is our oyster here. We can gear it towards just the classifiers, or we can gear it towards the event directors. I just know that that was a topic of need in the survey, which I don't know if I've ever sent you guys a survey. I can send that to you. But, you know, we could follow up with more in January. Do you guys mind taking that offline and seeing what you think would be the best use of this time?
Oh, I think event directors is fine. To be honest, I think us classifiers are good at communicating amongst ourselves pretty well. We have Facebook groups and we just miss each other because it's been weird without normal competition. So,
okay.
I don't know if you agree, Deanne, but.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we can chat a little bit about, because I understand your point of, you know, it is a big issue. Event directors are saying, well, hey, this person could be my official and they can do this, or, you know, can we classify two things or not? So, Jen, maybe you and I can just chat about that topic and how that fits into this panel session, but I would still leave it for event.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So we will wrap up because we're a little bit over. We originally put 2 hours and we didn't think you guys would stick with us. Couple things I wrote down. First of all, we'll send this out, this slide deck, because I know a couple people came late, but if anyone after our talk today doesn't want to be involved, we just don't have the time, or you just don't like what we talked about or whatnot, if you could drop me a note this week and just regretfully decline your participation, that would be awesome. Otherwise, I will assume you guys all want in. And then, you know, I know we talked a lot about the sports, but, you know, Steve and Steven and Jim and everybody, if there was something that looked of interest to you particularly, or if anybody's like wondering really what their role could be, just let us know. But we really see you guys all as valuable people in this mix. We won't set meeting dates now, but I think that after we have the November meetings for 2021, it'd be good to just get a quarterly one in the books so that everybody has that consistently. If you can make it, great. If you can't, no worries. And then if you guys will all put these calendar dates in for November, we'll send that out. 2 other things. Those of you guys that are sport people, if we could connect with the NGBs in the next 2 weeks, I could certainly start that email just to invite them to the stuff in November and continue to have a relationship with them and make sure we're complimenting each other. So I'll start that and include you guys on it, but if we could somehow connect with them, either email or phone. And then those of you guys that are in the sport and classification sessions, and Paul Johnson, we signed up for everything, be in touch about facilitating those actual November meetings. And then the only other thing I feel like we didn't talk about too much, which we'll table for another day, is this question about table tennis, para-triathlon, really what we want to have our niche and focus sports be, if we want to change them or not. Obviously, we're not going to just take on the world right now. We'll survey the athletes, we'll see what they really want, and little by little bring different things to the mix. But those are the 2 sports we're really curious about. So if anyone has any big opinions on them, you could send those to Jesse and I and Shelly. Otherwise, we'll probably leave things as is for now. Anything I missed? Shelley loves the list. Okay, let me just make sure there's nothing in the chat. Thank you, Jen. Okay, so we'll send out some information. Again, guys, we know that this is a long time to be on the computer, so thank you. And if you have any ideas or anything, just let us know. Sound good? Yep.
Thanks all. Have a
Yep.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Thanks,
Bye, Chief
Susan.
Skinner.
Awesome
Thank
job,
you.
guys. Really excited about
Thank
this.
you.
Thanks, Deanne.
Thanks, Deanne. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everyone.
See everybody.
Hi, Paul. Coulter John.
Hi, Susan. Sorry I was late. Time difference got me.
You live on a farm now. There's no such thing as time.
You're right. You're right. I got 22 water buffalo, and that's a challenge right now.
Oh my goodness.